Hey guys, Aaron here. Today I'm going to be making a quick video on how to properly diagnose a bad ECU relay or a bad IPDM on a Nissan vehicle. This particular vehicle is a Nissan Titan. It's a 2008 four-wheel drive with about 240,000 miles. Now the IPDM stands for Intelligent Power Distribution Module, and it controls a ton of electronic components on these Nissan vehicles, including the ECM. The ECM relay is a separate component inside the IPDM. It's known to go bad, and when it does go bad, you can experience a lot of drivability concerns, including stalling, no starts, rough idle, low power conditions, and things like that. Now the first thing I do is when I suspect a bad IPDM is I'll run the self-test. The self-test is an automated test that will go ahead and power up everything like the low beams, the high beams. It operates the horn, it'll operate the wipers, it'll operate the condenser fan if there is one, the AC compressor. It'll go through everything that it powers up. It'll power up everything momentarily, and it's actually a good way just to make sure that the IDPM is sending good power to all of those functions. So if you are having a headlight issue, or your AC compressor is not operating correctly, you can go ahead and run this self-test, and it's a kind of a surefire way, a quick way to verify that that component is getting power. Now the self-test is an awesome way to check to see if something isn't working or isn't getting power. It's a good way to test relays and stuff like that. However, if you're having a stalling issue or an issue with your motor itself, you're going to be wanting to look at the ECU relay and testing that, because the self-test won't have anything to do with the operation of the ECU. But before we get into the testing of the ECU relay and all that, let's go ahead and go over the self-test just to show you guys how everything powers on and how you can check voltages pretty quickly. So the first thing I'm going to do is just wet down the windshield. Since the wipers are going to be operating, I don't want the wipers to scratch the windshield due to any dry dust or anything like that. So just go ahead and spray some water on there, and then let's continue with the test. All right, so the first thing is that we need to start with the ignition off. We're going to go ahead and turn the ignition on. Now within 20 seconds, we need to push down the door jamb button 10 times. Once we have that done, let's turn the ignition back off. Now when we turn the ignition back on, we're gonna hear the horn go off, and then it's gonna start the self-test. There we go. Now let's go ahead and watch everything being powered on. Here's the wipers. Going to go through all the speeds of the wipers, running lights, and fog lamp. There we have the low and high beams. Now it's going to go ahead and turn the AC compressor on. If you have a condenser fan, it'll go ahead and power that up. So if you have a condenser issue and a condenser fan issue, you can test for power there as well. You can hear the AC compressor clutch being activated. There's our fan. And we could also see that it operates the oil pressure light as well, which is kind of handy too. So when you want to stop the test, just go ahead and turn the ignition off, and the test will be over. All right, so now that we've gone over the self-test, let's go ahead and talk about the ECU relay and the troubles it can give you and how to properly diagnose it. The ECU relay is located in the IPDM itself. Let's go ahead and take the covers off. So with the covers off, we could see the IPDM in the back here. This is a white one, so I know it's factory. The updated part that Nissan came out with is black in color, so that's a good indicator. A lot of the original ones fail. I have never seen a new replaced updated part fail, so just keep that in mind. Now in this particular vehicle, in order to gain access to the ignition relay or the ECU relay, we're gonna have to partially lift the IPDM out of the fuse box. Just collapse the tabs and it'll lift up. All right, so with it lifted up a little bit, you can see the black connector on the right here. If we count 3 relays over, this third relay is going to be the ignition relay or the ECU relay right here. What I'll do is I'll end up swapping it with the fog light relay, which is closest to the connector. And that's a good indication. It'll take a quick little test to see if our problems have been resolved. But what I'll actually do right now is I'll go ahead and test voltage at the mass airflow sensor, and I'll compare it to battery voltage. With the ignition on, we should have battery voltage at the mass airflow sensor, which is a component that is controlled by the ECU. All right, so here I have the connector for the mass airflow sensor. It's a 5-wire sensor, and the brown wire on these vehicles is going to be our source voltage. Just going to go ahead and tap into that with an alligator clip. All right, so I got my voltmeter set on volts. Just going to ground my ground lead, and as you can see, we have battery voltage at the connector, which is a good indication that the ECU relay is sending proper voltage to the ECU. And a good rule of thumb when you're testing voltage at the mass airflow sensor is that you should be within a 0.5 volt of battery voltage. Anything less than that and you're going to be experiencing some issues. I've seen where the ECU relay only gives about 5 or 6 volts out. That's pretty common to see with a bad failing ECU relay. I hope you guys like this video. Just a little bit of tips and tricks on how I properly diagnose a bad ECU relay or a bad IPDM. So thanks for watching as always, guys. Make sure to check the links in the description for parts and tools I use during this video. Thanks again as always. See you next time.